check, 1, 2. Hello everyone, my name is Yarin and welcome to tonight, the night before Chanukah's little crash course. Really, I just wanted to share with you the deep, gorgeous spiritual insights, but also the just juicy secrets about this holiday and why I think that it is very relevant, not just about conserving Jewish history and identity for 2,000 years, but actually helping us understand what the role is of the Jewish people today. So let's dive right in. First of all, Chanukah starts tomorrow, which is the 25th of Kislev. And if some of you may know, most of the Jewish holidays actually begin on the full moon, which occurs on the 14th of each month. And that is because most of the Hebrew holidays, And that's because most of the Hebrew holidays actually go according to agricultural cycles and like cosmic cycles, because that's like the lunar calendar. But actually, Chanukah happens because the date is recorded and it is a historical date, and therefore, according to the rabbinical holiday that is Chanukah, we celebrate it at the end of Kislev, the 25th, which is tomorrow or today, depending when you're watching this. And why it's really cool is that basically this holiday basically spans over 2 months. It's the only Jewish holiday that begins at the end of one month and ends at the beginning of the next month. Complicated, but you get it. So I went to a Jewish day school, and to be honest, they did not teach us any Jewish history. Yes, King David, I will shame you for that. But I've been learning and trying to figure out what, when, who, everything happened. And one thing that I learned is the history of Chanukah. And I think that it's really important to really understand just the general background of what we're even talking about on the historical end. And it's a really good place to start. So firstly, on Chanukah, we basically commemorate 2 different miracles. The first miracle is the miracle of the Maccabees, which were a very small outnumbered army. And they beat the Greek Syrian army, which was trying to Hellenize, basically make un-Jewish and Greek all of the Jewish people living in the land of Israel during the time between the first and the second temple. The second miracle was actually the Chanukah oil. Basically, when they were in the war, the temple was totally desecrated, and after the Maccabees won the physical war, they came to relight and inaugurate the menorah, but there was not enough oil. So they found a little jug of oil, and there was only enough oil for 1 night, but then it miraculously lasted for 8 nights. Why 8 nights? Because it takes 8 days to actually make more olive oil. So that's why it was a miracle, because the candelabra, the menorah, had to be lit the entire time. So basically, Chanukah commemorates those 2 miracles. And if we want to go a little bit deeper into it, this happened about 2,000 years ago, okay? And one thing that's important to understand in order to get the big context is that the Greeks wanted to Hellenize the Jews. That means that when they came, they didn't just want to kill us. They didn't just want to take the land. They were like, it's okay, you guys can stay, but you need to now follow the Greek way of life. And therefore, you cannot be Jewish. You cannot observe Torah and mitzvot. You cannot learn Torah. You cannot circumcise your children. And your woman cannot go to the mikveh. And basically, this whole war wasn't just a war against a physical army. It was also a spiritual war, which we won. And the whole idea is that the light of Chanukah, the light that beats the darkness, is the spiritual light that beats the darkness, the decree against Jewish values that are eternal, and just saying they are so eternal that we're still here today. So that's one of the first things that we need to understand about Chanukah, that it's all about this Greek materialistic philosophy of life vis-a-vis the more Jewish spiritual holistic view on life. And again, it's not that Judaism rejects things like aesthetics and philosophy. It's just that we believe that the deeper spiritual things in life are just more important. And that's really our message to the world. So now that we understand the historical little side of it, also the Maccabees weren't the only heroes. There's also like cool stories about female heroes, which I'm going to save to the end. You can just skip to that if you like. But I just want to give you like a crash course about what we practically do. So yes, we know that we light the Chanukah every night for 8 nights. The Chanukah basically has 8 normal little sides and then one long side, which is the helper candle. And basically we light the Chanukah by a windowsill or outside your door in order to publicize the miracle. The whole point of Chanukah, the whole point that we even light these Chanukiot, is to publicize the miracles that happen, because it's the month of miracles. And it's also, by the way, no coincidence that like all the other religions in the world, like Diwali and Christmas, all happen around this time of the winter solstice. It's not that they were copying Judaism, it's just that it's like a cosmic infinite thing. The Kabbalah speaks about Adam and the winter solstice, and that it's very deep and very spiritual. I'm not going to go into it, but that God creates basically the supernal light that is then brought down into the world, and today we just experience it in different ways and in different colors, if it's in different religions, different countries, whatever. But basically the source of it, I'm not going to make a blanket statement over here, but Kabbalah and the Torah writes about the winter solstice, and the Midrashim speak about Adam and this particular time. So basically we're publicizing the miracle. We light the Chanukah. There's 2 prayers that we say every day. The first one is on the candles. The second one is about the miracles that Hashem does for the people then, and he does for the people now. And totally like, I'm thinking about the Maccabees being an outnumbered army, and like, hello, that is the idea for like this tiny little army in Israel that is taking out people left, right, and center. So those are the 2 Chanukah prayers. And we also have a Shechianu prayer that we say at the just on the first night. But basically the way to light the candles is like a whole particular order. I'm not going to go into it. You can Google it, or you can find it in the guide. Also, I don't have to go into this, but I'm sure you know, on Chanukah we eat oily foods like donuts, like a lot of donuts. I'm a little bit nervous about how many donuts I'm going to eat, but we eat the oily foods to commemorate the oil in the temple. One thing that I really want to talk about is the whole ritual and experience of lighting the Chanukah candles. Really, it's not like lighting a scented candle and letting it chill in your house. There's something uniquely divine and beautiful and spiritual about the Chanukah candles. And so really, I think the beauty of most of the Jewish rituals is that they are rituals. It's not like God said that we have to do X, Y, Z. It is like this beautiful thing that every night we get to sit with our family, with our friends, eat good food, and light the Chanukah candles. And really, the Chanukah candles have a very special light. It is a holy light, and it is a light that brings blessing into our home. It's not like lighting a scented candle and putting it on your table. There's something completely different about the aura that the Chanukah candles create. So if you're thinking about maybe just lighting once or twice, I really highly encourage you to really try light every single night. And basically, when we light the candles, we light them, we bless, we sing, and then we're kind of not obligated, but the thing that we do is that we sit and we just sit with the candles for 30 minutes. And really, it's such a mindful practice of a time to not be with your screens. You're not meant to be reading. The whole point of the Chanukah candles, it's like, you're not allowed to use the light for any reason. So it's like you can't even come and sit and use the light to read a book. You're literally meant to just sit and gaze at them. And this is kind of where I encourage you to think about what kind of meditation. Just use it as a moment of meditation, of just sitting and glaring at the beautiful light, thinking about your life, thinking about your inner light, your neshama, thinking about Am Yisrael, praying for Am Yisrael. They also say that it is a very divine time for praying. So that's definitely something that you want to do, and fill your home with a lot of light. Another thing that I think the Chanukah is also really there in the Chanukah also happens during the darkest times in winter, and it is there to bring this inner. So earlier I spoke a lot about this fight between the duality of the spirituality versus the materialism, and the Greek culture versus the Jewish culture. And I think that this isn't just something that happened 2,000 years ago. When we think about the West and the life style and the race and the chase against materialism, against Botox, against so earlier I spoke about the struggle between spirituality and materialism, and I think that today the way that that manifests is in Western culture and the obsession, the capitalist obsession with wealth, with travel, with wellness, with Botox, and just with everything that makes us chase external things rather than really being focused on and getting joy and getting sustenance and vitality from the internal things. And I think that really Chanukah is there to teach us that the real thing that matters is that internal spiritual things. It's not that Judaism comes and says, no, we reject materialism. Of course we don't. We're Jews. So, but I definitely think that Chanukah is a time for us to remember the soul, the inner light of every single one of us, the light of the Torah, the light of why we're even here, and to just realize that we're not into the materialistic crazy race, but rather we're here to really do the work of the soul. And I can tell you, as just me, little Yarin, what I really want to do in this world is teach these teachings and do these things. And this is something that I do for nothing. I invest money into it. I do not make money from it. It's much easier to dance on screen and make money rather than teach spiritual things. Perhaps that will change for me at some point. But really, I don't see my first priority as making cash. If that was my priority, I would be making a YouTube channel about something completely different. But really, this is about following that still small voice in me that says that this is what I have to do. And believe me, there's a lot of voices inside of me that tell me that I should not be doing this. So, but I'm showing up because this is, when I listen to that still small voice, this is what it says. So now I want to get into the real juicy stuff. The first is that there's something called Chag HaBanot, which is the festival of the daughters. Not many people know about it. In Arabic, it's called Eid el-Banat, and it's basically a feminine holiday that Jews from North Africa, women, used to celebrate. I'm talking like Libya, Morocco, Tunisia. My grandmother's from Tunisia on my mother's side, and from Greece and Turkey. And basically they used to have a feast and bake cakes and forgive each other if they were fighting. And it was just like this beautiful feminine gathering that happened every year on Rosh Chodesh Tevet, the 8th night of Chanukah, and we call it Chag HaBanot. Now, I think it's the most underrated Jewish practice, and I'm totally trying to revive it. So on the 8th night of Chanukah, you should gather your girlfriends and have a little party, because Eid el-Banat, Chag HaBanot, is happening. And Chag HaBanot actually is also linked to two female heroines that come about during this time. The first one is Yehudit. She was basically a widow who lived during the times of Chanukah, and long story short, they wanted to come and basically destroy her city, and she was like, that is not happening. And she went, and she was just like this beautiful, graceful woman, and she seduces the Greek army general, and she feeds him cheese, and she makes him drink wine, and basically while he's drunk, she takes out a sword and she cuts off his head, and he dies. She kills him, and basically his army sees his dead body and freak out, and then they leave, and then she saves the town. So that is the story of Yehudit. Super badass story. And another badass story that we have is of Chana bat Mattityahu, who is one of the daughters of the Maccabees, or the sisters of the Maccabees. I forget. And basically during the time, there was a law that basically said that every Jewish woman that was to be married on the night of her wedding, she would have to be raped by the Greek army general. Yes. This is a general practice that they used to do in a lot of, it wasn't just against Jewish women. They did it everywhere that they used to go take over. But basically, on her wedding night, she stood up and she stripped down naked, and she basically made a whole speech, and her brothers were really angry at her, and they were like, oh my God, how can you shame us? Now we have to harm you, kill you, whatever. And she was like, oh, you're going to harm me, but you're not going to do anything to the Greek army general that's about to rape me tonight. And they were like, she's right. And then that basically started the rebellion and the eventual victory of the Maccabees. So it was all started by one brave woman. And for me, these stories are just these brave women aren't just back then. They exist today, and they exist in Israeli society and in Jewish communities and in the world in general. And these women are the women that choose to stand up, and they choose to make their voices heard, and they are courageous, and they step out of the status quo. And what I want to say is that there's obviously different kinds of women. Not every woman is a revolutionary. And that's totally okay. But there's something about, and it doesn't matter if it's within your home, if it's within your family, if it's within your community. There's something about having a strong core, having a conviction, being rooted, knowing what you want, knowing your vision, knowing what you stand for, that is powerful, and it is needed. It's needed in your home, it's needed in your community, and in the world in general. And really, Chanukah is there to remind us this. And the last, and for me, probably the biggest lesson that I love taking away from Chanukah is, and for me, really, the biggest lesson that I love taking away from Chanukah is the idea of preserving Jewish identity. Now, when the Maccabees won the war, when they defeated the Greek Assyrian army, this wasn't just a physical defeat. It wasn't just one army outdoing another army. This war was a spiritual war because the Greeks, like I said, wanted to Hellenize the Jews. So this was about theology. This was about worldviews. This was about faith. This was about God. And when the Maccabees won, this wasn't just a physical testament. This was a spiritual testament. And I think when we think about the Jew, we usually think of, like some shtetl man learning Torah, but really the real Jew was a warrior. The real Jew is a warrior on the one hand that holds a sword, and a warrior on the other hand that holds Torah and spirituality and eternal values of the Jewish people. And that is the new Jew. That is the old Jew. But really, the Chanukah story and the Maccabees come and remind us of this amazing combination of the physical with the spiritual. And today in Israeli society, there is so much division between the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox, and the Chilonim, the seculars, and it's really because there's just a separation between the physical and the spiritual. But really what we need is a combination of the two. We need people who are fighting in the army of the Jewish people that are both spiritual, Torah driven, but also like strong warrior men and women. And that is the holy, beautiful combination that I think that Chanukah and the Maccabees come to remind us of, that we're all just warrior kings and queens. So those are my 2 cents about Chanukah. And this Chanukah, I really just bless you to see miracles, to be in gratitude, to be in joy, to remember where you came from, to spend time with family, to use this time for spiritual growth, for opening, for deepening, for emunah, and to just have the best time ever. So I love you lots, and follow, subscribe, do what you need to do, and I'll see you soon.